Yeah.
And the other part is, I thought, we asked them to do a bio sketch, and then we ask for a vision statement, and then we ask for a photo. And I know that each year, a certain number of candidates submit almost nothing. They don't submit their vision statement, and they barely submit a bio statement. And I wondered if we should just make the vision statement optional, because not everyone, it feels like they just want to write and write and write and write. It's just that, so I wanted to see how others felt about that.
Well, I guess technically it is optional because people only have to, I mean, if they don't submit it, it's just not included. I don't have a problem with that.
Is the missions, my question's gonna go with a statement that was made to me. The N&E manual is a reference. It's not part of our bylaws, is what I was told.
Mhm.
By the board said to me that the N&E manual is just a means of a reference or a kind of a guide on how to do this. And
Mhm.
it's not really a bylaw or a RCW. So mostly what we have to obey are the bylaws and RCW, federal and state.
Yeah,
So
so really the minimum if somebody wanted to run, just saying, putting their application and saying I'm running and submitting no picture, no statement, it could still be included on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything that comes after submitting your name is optional. Recommended, but optional.
Yeah,
Well-
well, the packet does have a small bit of information that you put in it.
Right.
You-
But I mean, they don't have to write a statement. Like if you don't want your picture in and you don't want to write a statement, I don't believe you have to in order to run.
Probably not by the bylaws, but does that mean that the N&E manual has no force whatsoever? I mean, we're presenting, I think, as a policy or an operational standard, maybe not a legal requirement, but this is what how can I
Yeah.
make our process.
And I think it's good because it says optional maximum. So
Mhm.
that's telling you that you can if you like, but you don't have to. And if you choose to, then it's going to be limited to so many words.
Mhm.
So I think that's fine. And I don't see why you can't submit everything all at once.
Get it done. You know,
Yeah.
the argument might be, well, we don't know if we're going to be a candidate, but the threshold there is simply to be a member in good standing. There's no other requirement to run.
Mhm.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of submitting it all at once.
Okay, well, we'll present this to the board. So we're not, this one here, this is that I have on the screen is flavor 1.
It is flavor 1.
Okay, is flavor 2,
Flavor 2 just takes the proposed language change and puts all the background, all the rationales at the very end of the paper. So we
Just a little
need to
bit.
really look at it because we would need to decide on the language. It's just a formatting change where I would take the background, at the end, maybe no one looked at it. It just goes, addendum, and then it says rationale for change number 1, and it names it number 2, and it just copies the thinking, what led us to want to make these changes. You could scroll down a little bit so people could see. You see the background at the bottom of the screen.
I'll weigh in that I like the flow where you have the background and the rationale tied to the proposed change all in one thought. And then you can just move on, read one complete change and then move on to the next and not have to read and then flip back to the last page and remember
Well,
what
let's
was
make a motion, Lori, to do it that way, and then we can vote and we can move on.
Okay, so this is your first one. I make a motion to accept.
Flavor
Are we
1.
just doing the format or I mean,
It's just the format right now.
yeah, just the format. Yeah, what were you calling it?
Flavor 1. But
Revision 1?
yeah,
Yeah,
I would second that.
So the one that's on the screen now is flavor 2.
Is it flavor 2?
no, this is the one.
Flavor 1.
This is flavor 1.
This is the one with the background.
Mhm.
I would say the only thing, I agree with that. I like the way it's presented. The only thing I would just say is like to not get caught up in the wording of the background, because all that's being submitted for change
Mhm.
is, you know, the actual language of it. This is just to give some idea of our thinking behind it. But I was gonna say real quick, like, Gail, you were asking like what, you know, relevance, that's not the right word, but does the NNE manual have? And to me, I would liken it to a policy.
Mhm.
It's something that should be followed, but maybe doesn't carry quite the same weight as like a bylaw or an RCW, but it's not something to be just ignored or tossed aside.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's a-
and actually,
It's a process guide in my, oh, I'm sorry, Gail, go ahead.
and no, and reading it, just where it says add the following as part of the application packet, all candidates shall submit a maximum. I think it needs to say something as part of the application package, all candidates may submit.
Yeah,
I don't think we can require that.
Yeah, I know the difference, and that's why I went with the shall. But
Because I would read that as that it's something that has to be done. And I don't think there should be any gray area where a candidate is reading the application and wondering, do I have to do this in order to be placed on the ballot? Or is this something that I can do in addition to the minimum to be placed on the ballot?
How about it's recommended?
It is recommended all candidates
Mm.
submit a maximum. That's good.
yeah,
Because it is recommended.
it
Yeah.
is.
And just so you know, Gail, you're gonna rewrite all this then, right?
well, yes.
Okay, so when we went through the NNE manual last time, the last upgrade,
Mhm.
the board requested that we had the original language and then below it, maybe in red ink, what it would say as a change. And then if you want to put the rationale behind it, you could put that in also in either red or black ink, whatever you want, but they wanted to see the difference.
Well, that is actually, if we're looking at change number 1, the first one is unchanged. We add the one in italics, and then 4.1.10 is eliminated. So
Okay.
I think what Michael's is saying is in Word where with the tracking changes. I
uh-huh.
think they're looking for having the tracking changes turned on so that it would, when you go to delete, it puts a red line through it.
I'll tell you, to be
In
honest,
terms of
darlings, I don't know
functionality.
if I can do this. You know, we'll be meeting until 8 and I go to work at about 8 tomorrow morning. It may be,
If we'll just do it this way, we'll just run, if we're not
I can
changing,
change the color though. If people would like the stuff that struck out in red, that is an easy change. I can change that font to red. Would that be
think-
helpful?
I think that's all it is what's in italics is red and then the struck out is red because those highlight changes.
Mhm.
like that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Can you
And
make
then
it a-
what struck out is can just stay that way, or we can
Yeah.
go ahead. I don't know how to do the lines.
Yeah, can you make
Um,
the line red or not? I don't know.
I don't know,
I don't
but
think you can make
if
just.
they can
the
just
line.
see the actual wording, the wording of what 416 says, and then below it says add the following, and now it's in italics and in red, and they can see what you're gonna add to that,
Mhm.
and then
And then 4.1.10. is
4110, we have it here on the top, delete section 4110,
Mhm.
But in case they want to see it, like what are we
and it's
deleting?
right there.
Yeah,
And then it talks about the background on it, and that's all fine. Let's leave it, we'll just give it to them that way. It gives them the rationale, it shows them what we want to do and what we're going to remove. That's very easy to understand.
For some, I'm sorry.
So is that good with everybody?
I think it's great. Whoever made it red, more power to you. Was that you, Michael? That's
Yeah,
great. Thank you. So do we need to vote on each one then? Have a motion to approve the first change as a recommendation from our committee? I'll
Yeah.
so move.
We already had a motion on the floor, but we've gone past
thank
that. I don't know what, I don't
I-
even remember what
yeah.
it was.
The motion on the floor was to approve a format where the explanation immediately follows the change.
okay, that was to use flavor one. So we're gonna use flavor one.
Yeah.
And we've taken care of that little clause in it. The next part here is what? The entity manual section 417.
That, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
do
we
have a
should,
vote on the flavor.
yeah, let's vote
It
on
has to be
to
unanimous.
add to use the background.
I'll vote for it.
Okay,
So it's
Okay.
unanimous.
Do we want to vote on each section?
now, well, let's put it
That's
together and then we'll just say,
Do
all
all together?
right.
Okay,
Okay.
So this next section here that says document entity manual section 417, is that something different now?
yeah, so now we're going to, if an NNE member is running for an elected position.
Okay,
So
so I'm
we
moving
should
that down.
add. Yeah,
I'm moving that to a second page, so it's all on the same page. And now
yeah,
what you're gonna see here is document entity, add to the end of the section 47 or create 418.
there
So,
actually is a 418, so we'd have to renumber the whole thing, so I was trying to not do that and create a whole
let's-
thing.
yeah,
Um,
just changing all the numbers was fun.
Yeah, we should add this wording in here, but I will read it now for you guys. So 4.1.7 is the NNE will meet in early September after the closing date for submission of applicants. To confirm eligibility of the candidates, the NNE will open the applications and check them for signatures and whether any additional information needs to be provided. Staff will vet each candidate application and they will be sorted into open positions. NNE will create name slips for their random drawing to determine the order in which the candidates' names appear on the ballot. And I'm adding it to this section because I was like, this is the point where candidates are being announced.
Mhm.
And then it would
Lost.
say, sorry, what's that?
I'm lost. Where are we?
Oh, go up to the top of that. So I'm reading, this is not in, I didn't,
Oh,
that's the existing wording. So it's talking about when candidates are announced and drawn, and at that point,
Mhm.
upon declaration of candidacy, any current NNE member seeking an elected position on the board, NNE, or Architectural Control Committee shall immediately resign from the NNE committee. So if you have put your name in to run for an elected position and you're currently sitting on NNE, you would then resign from NNE because of the reasons stated in the background, just that to avoid a conflict of, and the appearance of a conflict of interest.
okay.
But we'll need to add that wording in there. And I can type it up and send it to you later, Michael, but it would have to go, the existing wording for 4.1.7.
Yeah,
And then
so that's
the
what I was gonna say.
addition
We're
in
gonna need to put
italics in
that.
red.
Let me get caught up here. I'm moving this to
Okay.
another page.
Okay,
Okay, so that's on there. So here we are. So this was gonna be what we're adding, right?
yeah,
Make that red and
We're gonna
italics.
make that red. And then up here at the top,
We'll add the thing as it exists, right?
Yeah.
if you send it to me and I can cut and paste it and stick it right in there.
okay. Can I do it
And they
after
can
the
s-
meeting? Because if I try to type while I'm listening, I
Yeah.
won't do a good job.
Are we making text red that we are adding or that we are?
Yes,
Adding or
making-
changing, yeah,
Adding or changing.
we're gonna
Okay.
put the statement above here, say add to end of section 417. We're gonna put section 417 at the top of this, in this little
Mhm.
blank space in black. And then the
Mhm.
red is what we're adding to it, so they can see the difference. And
I
then
think
we
what's
have the
confusing me-
background
I
and the
think what's confusing me,
explanation.
Michael, I think what's confusing me is I'm used to most documents when what red is what I'm taking out. What strike through and blue is usually what I'm adding. So I'm good with either. I'm just saying
Okay, well, we did it in red and white and black last time, so.
Okay, well, I think what for me, I've just been kind of confused in the meeting on what's going where, so
I could change them to blue, but
that's okay.
all right. So so that's what we're gonna do then is we'll put the wording, existing wording in that block there,
Mhm.
followed by the red addition. And it'll say right here. Black. Add to. End of
Yeah,
section.
just the same from the wording, because she did it, like Gail did it perfect up above. She had a little like in brackets, add to the section, and it was really clear. So I can actually just type up the whole thing again, just like in the same format that Gail submitted hers, and send it to you, Michael.
Okay. I'm
Well,
just
or
gonna
you
put that
could
right
cut
there.
and paste from the NNE manual, which is hard to find. It's under real estate, help for real
Yeah.
estate. But
Oh,
There's
really? I'm a really fast typer. I can just type.
All right. So everybody is good with that?
make it
Okay, let's-
italics as well, though, the red thing.
Yeah,
we're
make the red italics.
You're really testing my skills here. Okay. where
I'll
are
just do it
italics?
instead. I'll do it instead
There you
of
Italics
go.
are
you.
right there.
That's it.
Okay.
Perfect. That
All
looks great.
righty.
All righty. Well, I'm glad that we're doing this because I know that last year I felt if the bylaws aren't clear, I didn't see that we could insist that anybody step down. It didn't look good, maybe, but I think this will be helpful.
Well, so then that's a question. I only submitted for the NNE manual because I thought it was more urgent. But that can be a conversation now or later, like would we want to submit for the board to consider a bylaw change or just leave it? I mean, really this concerns NNE itself. NNE needs to self-govern itself
Mhm.
well to avoid conflict of interest. Is this something that needs a bylaw? Or do we just rely on NNE committee members to self-govern according to the manual?
Well, that other language you found, Karen, you talked about family members and et cetera. Were those bylaws or were those just part of the manual?
Oh, those are in the bylaws. Did I put it in there? Or
I
not?
thought you did as
It
part of
says in
your
the bylaws
rationale.
that no one from NNE,
Mm.
no one from NNE or ACC can serve on the board at the same time.
Yes, and then there's one that talks about counting.
Yeah,
The
there's one that
vote.
says they can't count votes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is if we wanted to pursue a bylaw change, I think I would just change that wording to not just say counting the votes, but to be a little bit more encompassing of
Mhm.
handling ballots or, something more about the entire election rather than just the counting, because there's a lot of ways to appear to have a conflict of interest is basically it.
I agree.
That's the main gist
Okay,
of it.
so now we're on the next part about we're gonna retain the 2-day official withdrawal period.
Mhm.
We all agreed on that, okay, and then add this section right here. So this is section 413. That we want to add to that, or if we change numbers, we got to change a lot of stuff. So we should just make this, add this to
Something
the-
existing.
the existing section.
It might not be quite that serious if we remove 4.1.10. Because if we take it, then we have to change the numbers of it, but only two more, right?
Hmm.
That would only be two little changes. And also, I'm also willing to stay up late and just make these changes tonight, if that would be
If I do
helpful.
this right here, Gail, I can just keep this. So you won't have to do it. Karen can send me what she's gonna do and I'll cut it and paste it and stick it in there and have it done. That's what, this is gonna be a final copy right here that I'm doing right now.
Okay.
And guys, I did some checking I couldn't find any HOA that where in their entity committee manuals has any language about what happens if a candidate withdraws. In fact, one person I talked to said, we've never had that. Semiahmoo doesn't have it. The HOA that our family was involved with down in Oregon doesn't have it. So I think it's just the situation we had last year. So this is language that Gail, thank you, Gail, that I liked it. So that in my mind, I thought, well, this is something new that we've experienced. We can put this in our manual.
It certainly created a distorted vote. We'll never know how. I think that the withdrawn candidate got about 200 votes, not enough to be elected, but it certainly distorted the outcome. In other words, members did not know when they were voting for the person who withdrawn that person had withdrawn.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
this will be information you might choose to vote anyway, who knows why, but I think you should know. It shouldn't be some
Right.
kind of secret.
Right.
I agree. I think the premise of fair elections is that everyone has access to the same information. So that would be, I think, on us to disseminate the information that
Mhm.
we have, which is if we know that someone is not intending to serve, the thing to ensure a fair election would be to disseminate that. And not everyone will access all information, but certainly try to put it out there as much
Yeah.
as possible, but in a very, I don't know, very neutral way. You know,
Yeah.
I think, I like the wording that you put here, but I do think that you would need to be careful about the wording and how it was said. But I like exactly what was said in here.
I think the key
I
thing.
agree.
is that
I
we're
agree,
not sure.
Karen. I
Yeah.
agree, Karen, because I think that we want to make sure that it doesn't come off like we're telling somebody how to vote, or but it's giving people information. I wouldn't want to vote for somebody that had no intention of serving, and I think there's nothing wrong with putting that information out there.
No, it might be a protest vote, people write in Mickey Mouse sometimes on their ballots, but that's okay. If you want to waste your vote on a protest vote, you have that option. But others, probably the bulk of people, would prefer to vote for someone who seems to want the job,
Mhm.
or at least is available for the job. I should maybe put it that way.
Right.
Well, and that also goes back to the vision, or the state, what I submit, yeah, it's optional. But if someone really wants to take me seriously, I think I would put that information about how I see
Exactly.
where the HOA should go.
Absolutely. I feel that too, but you
Okay,
might
is
include that in your
is that
bio.
what I made red? Is that all we're adding? Or are we adding that second paragraph also?
Well, I thought we might, to make sure that it was clear that we were not disseminating private information, or that in announcing that you were withdrawing, that you were acknowledging that your withdrawal would become public. It wasn't
Mhm.
some private communication between you and the NNE chair, or you and the board president, or something like that, because it mustn't be. I mean, as Karen just said, equal access to information is part of the fair,
Yeah,
process.
yeah,
So
This
I
next
would put it
paragraph
in
should
there.
be in there.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it should, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
So we're all quiet.
I'm just reading.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah,
only The only sentence that is giving me pause is the very last one where it says the individual withdrawing is also encouraged to post their statement of withdrawal on the various public social media in which they participate. I don't know that we should be giving advice
Yeah,
to those who are withdrawing. Because that's,
I understand that, Lori, and I wondered about that myself. I would be fine with removing it.
Yeah, I
Because
would-
obviously the person withdrawing it will do that if they want,
I mean,
or
they can
not.
hire a skywriter if they want. Just not that this should be a precedent or anything, just if you can share. When there has been, when people have withdrawn after the withdrawal date in the past, has it normally been done in writing, or was it a casual conversation, or how was it done prior to today?
Well, my perception, at least in the most recent instance, I think that the individual did notify the board in writing, or possibly the NNE chair in writing, but that was the end of it.
Okay,
And in fact, we had guidance that that information was not to be shared because it could be construed as telling people how to vote.
right, which made no sense at all.
I just thought, no, we don't want to tell people how to vote, but we would like to give them the information that you may be voting for someone who
Mhm.
is unavailable.
I remember a couple election cycles in the past, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years ago, where somebody at the last minute pulled out, and it was the association, I don't remember what they put on the web page. I don't remember, but I do know the association announced that that this person had withdrawn.
I do remember that also. That was somebody that put it in and then pulled it out. And I don't remember his name, but I do remember it was a guy, and the information was disseminated better than last year. What was confusing, excuse me. What was confusing last year was one board member campaigning still for that person, knowing that they had dropped out, and the NNE chair knowing that they had dropped out, not saying that they had dropped out, because there was a letter that I have a copy of with the date on it that she withdrew, and
Well, so by
that
having
information wasn't put out because of the attorney letter, which I haven't read, and the general manager is saying, well, we can't do that, we can't influence the vote. And so
Yeah, that's what made it kind of lopsided, is you had on the one side freely
Yeah.
saying still vote for this person, and then weren't able to put out the other side. Because in previous years, I remember too, it not being such a big deal, but you also didn't have on the one hand anyone really campaigning for that person. It seems like it's common, maybe not every election, but many, where somebody drops out for one reason or another.
but the information's always been put out.
Yes, yeah, it has. And I don't ever recall it coming off as telling someone who to vote for. I remember in one meeting, maybe it was a candidate forum, somebody came up and announced that they were withdrawing. And then that information was shared. So yeah, I think last year was kind of a different situation, but it is not uncommon for someone to withdraw after the print deadline. But I think just having a previously agreed upon way to communicate that just maybe will help dissuade any fears that like we're telling people how to vote or whatever, because this to me seems very benign and neutral, and just getting the information out there, which should be the goal, to get everybody as much information as possible.
And the person that withdrew was sitting there in the meetings and not saying anything either.
Yeah.
Which really didn't help a lot also. So it was a combination of, I don't know what you would call it. Anyhow, it made it very convoluted, and with the 200 votes that she got and the 100 that we couldn't count, who knows? I mean, it could have, would have changed the entire face of the board.
It would have
And
changed the
so-
vote ranking for sure.
I mean, it would have, 300 votes would have changed everything, and we don't want that to happen this year. So hopefully, I'm sure this statement's gonna get the attorney question on it. I would bet money that this is gonna get asked. So,
But Michael, may I reiterate a decision made by the group, I think in our last meeting, to encourage you at least to request the attorney's opinion, because if it affects NNE, again, why would that information be withheld from you? Whatever it contains, how can we possibly honor it or at least incorporate it if
I
we're,
think what it said was, and the way that Nancy handled it was she just didn't give me any more information because I was making information available on Facebook, trying to squash all the rumors,
Mm.
saying, no, that is not what happened. This is what's happening. And it was that they didn't want to say anything. Just let the course run however it ran. I will ask for
Was-
I will ask for a copy of that letter. I haven't done it, but
Was the attorney aware that comments were being made in board meetings in favor of the candidate? Because that I would.
I
feel
don't
like would
know.
be- Anyway, if I think we should see it, and if this
Yeah.
goes to review for the attorney, great. We
Yeah.
should see that as well. We should,
Yep.
I would want to follow attorney's advice on
Yeah.
that, but we can't do that without seeing what was asked and what his response was. So.
because that's the two parts of it. What question was asked?
Mhm.
Because you're going to get the answer to that question. You're not going to get a myriad of answers. You're going to get that answer for that question.
Right.
I mean, I think
Okay,
one of the
so-
most, I'm sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
I think one of the, getting the attorney letter is really good. I think it's also very appropriate for the nominations and elections committee to just put facts out there. Fact, these people are running. Fact, this person is no longer running. Being on the committee, when it comes up for elections next year, I won't say anything. I mean, I don't think any of us should be involved in supporting openly, even though we can. I just don't think it gives a good impression that, oh, look, the nomination committee members are all voting this way.
Mhm.
I think we should, just as individuals, make a personal choice to try to remain as neutral when it comes to announcing and influencing the election.
Yes.
Well,
So,
well
so
said,
if we
Lori.
just say, this is who's running, and this is who's not, and that's the only thing we
Period.
say, I think, period, I think that's very important. To me, it
Yeah.
is.
And that's what I did on Facebook last year. I was saying, no, these people are running, this
You did.
person has withdrawn, and you vote for whoever you want. I've had people come by and ask me, I have a little old lady lives up the street, every election she comes by and says, who do I vote for? And I go, I really can't tell you that, but I can tell you these people are running, this person isn't
Mhm.
now. And you have to make your best decision. I said, I'm on the NNE committee, so I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I think that's exactly how we have to be, so that we are seen as an upstanding
Yeah.
committee and a pillar of this community, and not somebody involved in.
That's why it's really good if you
No.
encourage people to make their statement, so it's on there, so everybody can
Mm.
hear what what their vision is, what their
Mhm.
plan is.
Yeah.
And that helps.
I think what we're talking about is being a group of a committee that has integrity, and we want to operate above reproach and be professional. So I
Yep.
applaud everything that you guys have said about that.
We have to be strong neutrals.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got this thing little laid out here. We're going to retain the 2-day official period and then add this just on there to 4/12. If we have to make it a 4/13, I can, but I'm just making it look simple for the board. And
Okay.
so are we in agreement on that with the background?
right. And
Yeah.
I support Lori's suggestion that we just take, and I think you've removed it, Michael, that.
I did
data
remove that line.
That's fine.
So
That's
I'm gonna
great.
take this down to the next page somehow here. Okay. we'll go
Yeah, there
on.
was some discussion. I don't know that the language on this one, because I just created it a couple of hours ago, is exactly what we need. But I know there was some feeling that perhaps we didn't know what to do with those votes.
Yes, there was a lot of confusion about this last year as well. And I think it would be great to have a definitive answer, I guess, whether we create the answer or if there's law or precedent elsewhere. It doesn't sound like there is for HOAs specifically.
Oh, yeah, make it red. Good job.
Oops, italics. Okay, did I get it? No, I didn't.
They didn't italicize. Maybe the term I want is that should be disregarded in determining the ranking, the vote ranking. I realize I feel like this was as precise as it should be. That the votes will be counted and reported. I think we absolutely have to do that. We're not going to disregard them, but they will be disregarded then in determining the final vote ranking, something like that. Because it would change the order. Or it could change the order.
So you're saying if someone, let's say someone withdraws very late in the game, and so they have garnered a lot of votes, and they, let's say we're electing 3 and they got second place, we would be saying those votes are counting, but they don't have second place. The next person in line has second and the person below them has third, and those are the 3 elected.
Well, that's why I'm saying we should be disregarded in determining the vote ranking.
The vote
Of the
ranking, yeah.
candidates.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Well, yeah, and again, sometimes it feels like we're stating the obvious, but I thought in the last go round that too often we did the obvious data because everyone was freely interpreting, the process as they felt.
Maybe we shouldn't concentrate here on what happens to the votes, but what happens to the candidate. So like votes cast for candidates who have withdrawn their application shall be counted and reported, but the candidate shall not be something.
Shall not be elected or shall not be.
Yeah, so that we're not tampering, I don't want to say tampering, we're
Yeah,
not playing around with the votes. We're just simply taking that candidate and the candidate will not be considered for,
The candidate is ineligible to be
Yeah,
elected.
right, because they withdrew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we refer back to their statement, like the candidate is ineligible to be elected per, I mean,
I'm
that's
just a thought. I'm not.
no, I
gonna
like
vote down
that.
votes, but I just,
I like that too, because it's about the candidate, not the
yeah,
Yeah,
votes are.
shall be counted reported. Any candidate who has submitted a statement of withdrawal will not be eligible to hold
to hold
a
office.
position, to hold office.
Yeah,
Something like that, so that it takes it away. Oh, you're doing this with the votes. You're not counting. No, we're counting the votes. And this person could have come in first, but because they have withdrawn, they're not eligible to hold office. Oh,
But isn't this that vote ranking? I can't recall how it's described, but the order in which candidates win,
yes.
it depends on the number of votes they get. So I should find that language somewhere. And I know I've seen it, like the person with the most votes gets the longest term. And then
If the terms are staggered like that, so in a normal election year, assuming you've not had anybody resign, you would
Mhm.
have 3 candidates for the board. I'm just talking about the board. 3 candidates being elected for 3-year terms each. But sometimes we have 5 candidates being elected, and you're right, the ranking does designate who gets the 3-year terms and who gets the 2-year terms or the 1-year terms, depending on what is available. So yeah, if we focus on the candidate, that does still leave that question open of then what happens. So maybe we need to add a little bit more language here. So
Yeah, like formally withdrawn, but I'm thinking candidate ranking will not be determined by these votes, something like that.
will be excluded
What
from the
about with-
candidate ranking.
Yeah, well, you know, the candidate vote ranking will be. What's the word I want? Candidate vote ranking would be completed without reference to those votes or something like that.
Well, maybe it's something like the total number of votes received by the candidate will not be allocated towards the total ranking of all candidates.
Well, you're getting there.
Yeah. The
I
total,
changed the first line. It says votes cast for candidates who votes cast for, it should say a candidate. A candidate
Who has?
who has formally withdrawn their application shall be counted and reported. So we want to make sure that that they're going to be noted. Okay, and then the votes cast for a candidate withdrawn shall be disregarded in determining
The vote ranking. I think that's the key
So-
thing.
Let me ask a question, because for the newbie here. Say you have 6 positions open and they come out and read the results, and the person in the number 2 spot right there says, I don't want to serve. What happens? Does it now go to whoever came in 7th? Does everyone just get moved up, or does it leave an immediate vacancy?
in my mind, well, that's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
That
was a
is-
question,
Because
wasn't it?
that
that's-
should follow whatever we do in that situation. This is how this situation should follow. Because basically that's just what it is.
So I don't think there's any precedent, but here's what I would say. And this is off the top of my head, and you guys might disagree. Until the election is certified, no one is elected. So in my opinion, if someone withdraws before the election is certified, that would all be the same. Anytime between announcing candidates and certifying the election would be handled the same way,
Okay, so
in my
what if?
opinion, but I don't know.
so- No, that's really good. So, and I'm just throwing out ideas here. So basically, if a candidate who has withdrawn gets elected, they would not be certified into an elected position.
Mm,
But we have to give the rationale or the process by which they would be deemed. That's why I wanted it to be in that first.
Yeah.
So
letter.
I think it's kind of like a write-in vote. So if somebody is not running, let's say our next presidential election, we all write in Michael's name and he gets elected even though he's not running.
Congratulations, Michael.
You know, so we have to kind of think of it as if somebody gets voted in and they don't want to serve, how is that handled? Because this
Well,
would be
I
the
like
same
what
thing.
Karen
It's
said, though.
basically, instead of people writing in the name of somebody who withdraws, they'll just check in the box. But they're still voting for a
Yeah.
person who is no longer on the ballot.
an ineligible candidate.
Uh-huh.
Because we're saying that once someone announces their withdrawal, and we have a process for that to happen. And I would say the same with someone that's elected day of and then stands up and resigns. They would have to formally submit before certification, the process saying they're not going to. But if they have gone through that, then we consider them ineligible, and regardless of what they say after the fact, they're
Mhm.
ineligible.
I
Once you
was trying to
declare,
get to that, and the other one, yeah,
yeah,
making them ineligible after they said a letter of withdrawal, I think is really important, so that we don't have, oh, well, no, I've changed my mind, my family situation is, you know, because that will drive everyone absolutely bonkers to try and straighten it out.
Karen,
Right.
can you say
Can
what
we
you just
add
said
that?
again?
Well, should we go back to the other one and just make sure that when they submit the letter, that then they are then ineligible?
I think that's what it says.
Well,
Mhm.
go back to it, because I don't know that we say that they have become ineligible. We only say that we publish the fact they have withdrawn, but we
yes,
say that we then have deemed them ineligible.
must give their permission, the statement would withdrawn.
Yeah,
Let's
that-
see.
And the reason they would not be eligible, well, gosh, man. So what happens if somebody, if 50% of the community writes in Michael's name for something, and he's not, can he then say, oh, hey, gee, I will take that position?
Well, I think that's what we are trying to address exactly.
Right,
And therefore, the withdrawal will be effective as of the date of the letter, and thereafter, that individual will be no longer eligible to hold office.
and the reason they're not eligible is because they have withdrawn and they've passed the deadline to resubmit.
Yeah.
Hey,
You
say
know,
that
I
again.
mean, that's the
And
rationale
after
behind it.
that, the candidate will be ineligible to hold the office for which they had formally applied.
Yeah. So
How do you spell that?
that's-
Ineligible.
Ineligible?
INELIGIBLE. Ineligible.
This will tell me if I got it right here.
You
Oh, I
have- right,
did.
to hold the office for which they had applied. This is good. I think it's good, something like this at least, because that was part of it. I think there was a sense that the person who withdrawn, seeing an upswelling of support, was going to change.
Right. And that's,
Yeah.
you can't, but they can't, if they withdraw, then they've missed the opportunity to submit.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so it
mean, if
says,
if they submit and then they withdraw, and then they submit again before the deadline, that's fine. But if they submit, it's withdrawing after.
Yes, this
the
is for
date.
after the deadline.
Right.
Yeah, and actually there is precedent for that because there was a candidate
Okay, I'm
previously.
gonna be real picky here, Michael. Did we put will be ineligible to hold the office for which they applied? But we can't end the preposition.
Preposition
okay,
ending.
here's what it says now, it goes through, it
I'm
says
sorry.
blah, blah, blah.
Here's that for.
A candidate who wishes to withdraw after the date called out in
Yeah, no,
412
down where you just
above
changed it.
shall do so in writing to the chair of NNE. No reason is needed. Communication must be clearly stated for which what they have applied, and if elected, I will not serve, and must give their permission to the Sudden Valley statement to be shared. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Dang.
Let's-
The withdrawal will be effective as of the date of the letter and this should be we should not have it as an email. It should be a written letter.
Well, the thing is, we would want that information out. Is who writes letters anymore?
All right, and email, and thereafter the candidate will be ineligible to hold office
office.
applied for.
No,
to
For which
hold
they
the
applied.
office. Yeah,
The office for which they applied, to which they, yeah, for which they, the
Hold
office
the
for which they-
office.
2 or 4, yeah, which,
for
For
which
which.
or which,
they applied.
sorry.
and then take off the
Okay.
4. Yeah, take off the 4. Good.
Oh, I
Perfect.
think this is good. I think this is good. It
Yeah.
really addresses that.
Yeah.
I thought about that second iffy, like, well, maybe she'll, you know,
So
maybe.
with that, do we even need to address what's done with the votes?
I think so. I mean, I think we do, because the thing is that if people vote, we need a record of the vote.
Okay,
So, but the thing is, they have voted for someone who has said they will not serve and who in fact is becoming eligible to serve. And so at that point, we can disregard votes cast for someone who is ineligible to serve.
What if we say something like the candidate's name will not appear in the vote
yeah.
ranking for election or something
was
like
like-
that?
I put
was
in
like,
here.
what if, like, this is, I'm being devil's advocate here. So say we have six positions open, 6 terms open. Only 4 people are running, including the 5th who dropped out. The 5th dropped out, 4 are currently running. Those people, the person who dropped out, even if they get 1 vote, they would still be number 5 out of
But the thing is
6.
that not with our new language, they are ineligible for that position.
And
so-
well, this is
Yeah,
just
well,
determining the vote ranking.
Well, I think that what Gail just said, the language here covers that. They're
Okay,
further in the upper section, we say that they're ineligible. Here, we're saying, we're gonna count the votes. And once the candidates has withdrawn, it doesn't determine the vote ranking or for the length of terms. I think we've covered that.
okay.
What's the wording that so I know like you'll see it like, I mean, I'm gonna use our name. So Michael Wadsworth, 3-year term, Lori Robinson, 3-year term, Gail Chiarello, 3-year term, Rob Gibbs, 2-year term, and then me, 0-year term. Let's say I withdraw. Like what is the wording near it, or does it just say
Just
nothing?
says that. I could go grab my phone because I still have a picture of what
Do you?
was shown at the AGM. You want me to go get it real quick?
Yeah,
Yeah, if you can do it
I'll
quickly.
be right
Yeah, I'm just curious what it says, and that I would say that's what they would be assigned. You would be assigned
That's
a
a good
0-year
idea.
term or
Yeah.
just nothing. I mean, or just,
if they have withdrawn, and if in the act of withdrawal, which is a written statement, they therefore become ineligible to hold the office for which they have withdrawn, then I think we can disregard votes for ineligible and withdrawn candidates. We count them and report them, but they're disregarded in determining the vote ranking, or as Karen says, not certified. I think that's important too.
Yes, it should be counted and reported, but disregarded.
But disregarded in determining the vote ranking.
do we just say that? Votes cast for candidate who has formally withdrawn their application shall be counted and reported, but disregarded in determining vote ranking.
Yeah, maybe just keep it
Mhm.
that simple. I'm
Figure out
glad we're
what is-
grappling with this though, because that was part of the confusion. People were saying, well, if someone is voted in and chooses not to serve, then that creates an immediate board vacancy and the board gets to choose the new member.
But it wouldn't, because we're putting, well, we're not
We're trying
changing.
to
This
just
is,
make sure that at least.
yeah,
the
this is not
membership
part of the,
gets to vote. And not just, 8 people or however who might be actually available. We don't
Yeah,
want to instant board vacancy. When we
I
have
think
people-
it's, yeah, I think it's important to, as much as possible, allow the members to elect who's serving on the board. So, I mean, I kind of like this idea of any time between candidate announcement, or I mean, the time to withdraw and the certification, you go by the votes in that case. And that also prevents someone, I mean, we're getting way out in the weeds here, but also prevents somebody from sticking it out through the election, resigning the day after, so that the
Okay,
board can
perfect.
vote in who they want,
You had a question. I'm gonna read this to you real quick here. It says on the certification, it talks about votes cast, ballots not counted and all that. And it says there were initially 11 candidates for 5 open board positions. On September 19th, candidate Sandy Hirsch Mitchell withdrew by informing the nomination and election committee in an email. which was acknowledged by the chair. Of the remaining 10 candidates, the elected candidates are, and it had Stu Mitchell, 674, 3-year term, Andrew Tischler, 537, 3-year term, Linda Bradley, 523, 3-year term, Nancy Allenek, 458, 1-year term, and Asa Andrade, 457, 1-year term. And it doesn't, let me flip pages here. It didn't show on here in the final certification anybody else's name. So nothing, whatever is seen before that, it isn't certified, so it really doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I was trying to find the exact page that had everybody on it. Oh, it was right here. And then it went down after Asa, it had Lori, Andy, Katie, Morgan, Tara, and then Sandy Mitchell at the bottom. It just has it's just a
Just
list
names.
of, it just a list of names and how many votes they got, but out of that, the top 5
Mhm.
positions were filled by those top 5 vote getters.
But Michael, what we worry about is if a withdrawn candidate had received enough votes to be in the top 5. And yet had announced that they were not willing to serve.
Well, then we would probably have to certify the election without them in it. They withdrew and then announce an opening for someone to volunteer, and then have to wait 60 days and go through that process.
Well, we're trying to maybe not,
But
our goal is to, as Karen said, to make sure that the members are voting for the people elected and it's not just an appointment, if possible.
You know,
In my mind, until the election would be certified, that, let's say that person got the third most
Mhm.
votes that had withdrawn, they would just drop to the bottom. And the next person would move up to the 3rd position.
But does our language allow that? Is our language permitting that?
I think we're trying to, exactly as what Karen said, we want the members to be able to vote
Mhm.
people that represent them on the board.
I think we need,
I did send Michael you an email with this picture, and it just depicts the candidate's name that got the most votes. And then in the next column next to that is how long is that term? And once all the positions are filled, there's no term noted next to the person that got the next amount of votes. I don't know if you want to share that or.
where did you send it? To my board
I
email?
sent it to your board email.
Where are you? Right here.
I suspect, I would not be surprised if this also goes to attorney review. Just this language on it, just to make sure that
Yeah,
how we handle that is,
Can you see
Yep.
that?
I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree, Karen. I would be interested in what the attorney says, because I think as in a committee, we want to make sure we're following the law.
Yeah, I
and
mean, I think the rationale is to, as much as possible, let the elected representatives match the vote of the members.
Yes,
But of course, you can't force anyone to serve that didn't actually, submit or that withdrew or whatever.
yes.
Yeah, but also, is there something that we don't know or aren't considering that? Because there was a lot of confusion last year. Does it just create an opening that then has to get filled through a vacancy, or do you just go to the next person? I mean, I remember when I was appointed, it was not long after, it was January. So it was, well, gosh, I don't know when the opening, but it was really quickly after, and you know, it was a whole thing. I think like 8 people applied for that and whatever. And I mean, that was different. That was after certification for sure, but yeah, it does get tricky. But I think at least thinking through and trying to determine ahead of time before the situation arises is good, because then everyone knows what to expect. So
How about this? The votes cast for a candidate who has withdrawn and is therefore ineligible for office shall not be counted in the certification. Something like that. The votes cast for a candidate who is withdrawn and is therefore ineligible to hold the position shall not be, well, counted, shall not, maybe it shall not.
The first sentence there, votes.
I think
cast by-
disregarded at this point is okay. They've withdrawn, they're ineligible. We've counted them and reported them, but in determining in the final certification, the vote ranking, they will somehow be, they will be
So-
disregarded. I know,
Do we allow
Sorry.
write-in ballots? I mean, can you write in someone's name?
Yeah,
You
Can we?
can,
well,
I'm looking, I'm not reading anywhere that it says it can or can't, you can or can't.
and
I'm
the-
looking at
but there's no place for it
RCWs.
on the ballot.
I'm
I
not
know.
seeing that's addressed, because I would think that you know, we got twofold. I mean, if you withdraw, if you have to be on the ballot, if you have, you know, you have a cutoff date by when you have to apply. If we say the only people that can be elected are those that have submitted an application, then when they withdraw it, it's like somebody writing in someone's name, and if that wouldn't be counted, if I wrote in Michael's name, Michael, we're picking on you tonight, but if I wrote in Michael's name for a board of directors and he wasn't on the ballot, how would that vote be treated?
I've
Well,
never seen a portion on the ballot that allows us to write in.
So if
I mean, I'm
they
saying,
withdraw, they are no
Gloria,
longer
what-
on the ballot. So it would be the same as a write-in.
But Lori, you can't write in because you have to be a
Okay.
member of good standing and you have to have been,
Right.
whatever the term is.
Therefore, if they've withdrawn, they're not part of the election. They're just not part of, their vote shouldn't be counted at all. It's voting for someone who's not on the ballot.
Well, they shouldn't be counted, but I do feel that they should be reported. There's a
Why?
difference. Because I think the
They do-
membership have
they
a
do
right to
in-
know how the how the ballots actually came out. I don't think we're free to, we might not, I think we can disregard them in the certified, maybe we should say, and shall be disregarded in the certified vote ranking. Would that help?
yeah, disregarded in the certified vote ranking. I like that. And it's
all,
less
all
wording.
the votes have to be accounted for.
Yeah,
They could be the way it could be accounted for was vote for someone not on the ballot,
Well, they are on the ballot.
but they're not on the ballot if they've withdrawn.
Well,
but
they're on the
they're
printed ballot.
printed on the.
They're on the
ballot.
printed, but if it's been notified, I mean, I guess the only way then we would be able to send written notification in the same manner that the ballots were sent, which would be really expensive. I don't care.
yeah, I think we're kind of swinging the pendulum the opposite way, which was last
Yeah.
year. They
Yeah.
were like, if they're on the ballot, they're counted, they're eligible. And so we can tell people to vote for them. And we're kind of maybe trying to go a little bit past that, which is, oh, they've withdrawn, no way. And we need to probably find kind of a middle ground, which is they're ineligible, but they're still going to appear on the ballot and they likely will.
If
garner some
if
votes.
they're on the ballot, if they withdraw before it gets printed, we don't have to worry
Right.
about it. So
Right.
What about votes cast for a candidate who has formally withdrawn their application shall be counted? I just lost my thought. Shall be counted and invalidated. They can't be validated.
Invalidated, or I'll kind of like, if anything, the previous suggestion about will not be part of the certification or will not be certified.
Okay, shall be
But I think that- I
counted
think this-
and
I think
reported, but
the-
not certified.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I
not-
have here.
What I was trying
Yeah.
to say is, I think that the language that we have there in red is sufficient.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
I'll go for it.
So it does say that we will, count and report that these votes were cast, but those votes, because the person withdrew, shall not affect certification in determining vote ranking for length of terms. So they'll go to the bottom of the list immediately. And,
Yeah. Like they wouldn't even be listed on this, on the final certification, like what you just
Yeah.
read.
Well, no,
Yep.
because.
they
our
weren't even
earlier
listed.
language
They
Yeah.
wouldn't
is-
even be on the bottom. They just wouldn't be on the list.
Yeah, I like it. I
Good.
think that makes,
So how
Okay.
does that sentence read, Michael? The votes cast for a candidate who has withdrawn.
Who has
Right.
formally withdrawn their application shall be counted and reported. The votes cast for a candidate withdrawn shall be disregarded and not affect the certification in determining the vote ranking for length of office, terms of office.
I don't like the word effect, though. I think we need something more precise.
No.
If it was
Not
gonna-
included. Not included, maybe?
yeah, not included in, yeah.
Or
not
just, and
included.
yeah, and not included in the certification.
Period.
Yes. No,
Yes. Shall be disregarded and not included in certification.
so take out the word effect,
Yeah.
not
is that the word you-
included.
Hold on. I think you might need to leave that because when you actually do the vote tally, you're gonna have to have those number of votes in the vote tally or it won't tie out. So I get what, like, we're saying this thing, but if someone else were to read it, they're like, no, you have to count those votes, otherwise you're gonna be mismatched. So I kind of like, even though it's a little bit wordy, leaving this, like, they're not gonna be included in determining who's gonna serve. But
How
they're
about
gonna
in
have to be
determining the
reported.
results?
Yeah, in determining the results,
Okay,
right?
and not included in determining the vote ranking for,
Vote ranking results, I don't know.
So just put determining the election results.
I would add in front of results, the election final results.
Or certified results.
Yes.
That's what it says. The votes cast for a candidate withdrawn shall be disregarded and not affect the certification in determining the vote ranking for length of term of office.
Michael, you take what you feel comfortable presenting to the board. That's what I'm gonna
I
say.
think it says it all right there,
Good,
that
go
we're
for
gonna
it.
count the votes, we're gonna let people know these votes were cast for this person, but those votes will not affect the certification of the vote
Yeah.
ranking for term of office.
We're probably crawling in the short grass here. On this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And if
language-
we do our job of communicating well, this should not be an.
It
like,
should be
this
an
is
issue.
only if-
Yes, if
Mhm.
we
This is-
do our job at the first, this thing ain't
Yeah.
even gonna come into play and not get them on the ballot. We won't have to worry about it. Okay, then the last thing we have to talk about here is on the back of the security envelope and anywhere else that we can get it printed, that we wrote elsewhere as needed. We want to put, I think Gail came up with this language just to get us started. It says, stop. Do not mail after October 20th. Use the drop box in the clubhouse. And then it says Canadian members allow 4, and she wrote days additional mailing time. And I put minimum in there for, maybe that might throw off.
well, I think the minimum should go before the 4.
Yeah, minimum of 4 days.
Allow minimum of 4 days,
I like
yeah.
those minimum days as
Well,
opposed to those long days.
without trying to crawl in the short grass again, what about business days?
Mm,
And it should be international instead of Canadian,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. International,
Yeah,
because we
Yeah.
have people outside of Canada.
not
Yeah.
too many, but yeah.
In which case, some of them might need like weeks, but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I like it.
I think this is good. It's,
Is,
you know, we could, you know, tweak endlessly and that's fine with me. But I like Michael's idea that we honor our 60 to 90 minutes of meeting time.
yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think we covered a lot of.
I think we're good.
I think we got everything. Let me look at my little gizmo here. Here's the agenda. Okay, so we got all the old business taken care of. One last item, and this will go for our next meeting. I want you to think about this. Discuss vetting ballots in good standing, and it says in there that we have to vet candidates, and that's done by the staff. When they open them up, they vet to make sure the candidates are in good standing, meaning their dues are all paid up, okay? So I brought up the thing about vetting when Linda and I did this, we had a master sheet and we put everybody in alphabetical order, and then we went through and made sure they were in good standing. And she had I just sent the check in, so it'll be on there next time. And so that was all fine. But the GM and the treasurer at the last meetings brought up a whole bunch of reasons why we cannot look at somebody's financial statement and vet the ballots, that they'll be done. I said, but that gives them an opportunity to come in and get their dues caught up so that they can vote the whole thing rather than budget only. And they had all kinds of reasonings of privacy invasions and stuff of why we can't do it. And I was like, we've done this for years. So I said, well, then we need to fix something, and that is either get rid of the term in good standing and everybody gets to vote the whole ballot no matter where they're at, or we get to vet them, because you can't wait till Saturday morning at 11 o'clock or no, at 1:30 or 2 o'clock and say these people aren't in good standing. It doesn't give them an opportunity to come in and get in good standing so they can vote for board and not just budget only. And so that's just I want us to you guys to kind of think about it, look at it, read what it says in the bylaws about in good standing, and how should this be handled?
Wasn't this put to the members to change last year and it didn't pass?
Yes,
I don't know.
yes.
Okay, so we have to honor the in good standing. I'll go back and look at it. This is a conversation for next
This
time.
is a
but-
conversation for our next meeting, because it either needs to be done, we vet them in good standing, or it needs to be taken out so that everybody we don't deal with it. The only thing that counts is you have to be in good standing to run for the board.
Or staff needs to create a different report with just a yes or no. You know, they're in good
Something.
standing.
Well, it didn't tell us anything about their money or anything. It just said, yes, they're paid up, or no, they weren't. That's all it says.
Yeah, the
Well, I
alternate,
appreciate-
yeah, is that staff does it. If the community, if entity members can't see it because of privacy issues, I get it. It has to be done by staff. Because if this was put to the vote already by the members and the members upheld in good standing, you have to check in, or are you saying just let people just not vote because they're just not in good standing and you don't even try?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
We would-
That's conversation for next time,
That's
but yeah.
conversation for next time.
Hey,
Do we
Michael,
want to make a motion to accept?
Oh. Yes,
Yes.
to
Move-
accept the
Move to
forward-
accept the document as drafted.
With
second,
Karen's addition.
yes.
Yes.
And my addition is just gonna be what's in the existing entity manual. It's no changes. I second that.
Okie dokie.
All in favor, me?
All in favor?
Definitely. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, quick question. Do we have any responsibility to try to nominate open committee positions like finance, ACC? I know I hear it at the board meeting, but do we as a committee have some work to do with that?
We're supposed to announce that there are openings on such and such a committees And that's, I think that's all we do is we just say there are openings on finance, ACC, and whatever. And I'm gonna get Joanne to give me the list, because I went on Sudden Valley website and looked all over for it, couldn't find anything about it. She says, well, if you go to the volunteer forums, there's a form there that you can fill out. But I says, how do people know what's open? She goes, what was in the view? And I go,
Can we, can we
It's
send
gotta
out an
be done better.
e-blast?
huh?
Could we request an e-blast be sent out?
The last e-blast I got had nothing on it about it. Actually,
I
the
know.
last e-blast said it also, they were gonna talk about the money
Transfer.
being returned for the homeowner
Yeah.
process, and there was nothing in there about that
Nothing.
either.
I know, I'm saying we request it. If it's our responsibility to get it
Okay.
announced, can we draft something and get it sent out?
And
Any
something-
blast with the link.
I'm- Yeah, I'm gonna ask Joanne tonight, I'm gonna send her an email tonight and say, I need to get a list of what openings there are on what committees, so that Thursday night I can announce it properly. And we need to come up with means of communicating that to the homeowners rather than once a month in the view.
Yeah. It would
Thank
be
you.
helpful too, if we, and this might be on the website in it, but it might be outdated, if along with that announcement, we could put when they normally meet. Because they have different meeting times and dates, and that sometimes impacts
Yeah.
who is willing to serve. So if we could get that as well, I think it'd be good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Good.
Motion to adjourn, or we have more?
Is next
Sneaking
meeting,
it in there, Rob.
next meeting, the fourth Monday of April?
The next meeting is April 24th.
Will that be Zoom or in person?
We could have it any way we want it.
Okay,
If we
Mike,
want to
I'm
do,
curious. Did you, are you doing tonight's Zoom or is it admin?
admin's doing it tonight, and Joanne and I were gonna get together and she was gonna let me chair it or host it next time, I think.
Okay,
So we don't have admin have to stay late and do this.
okay,
Mhm.
and who is that
Saves
staff
us-
person? You know, I need to write these names down. The staff person in attendance is Joanne.
I think it's Morgan.
I think it's Morgan.
Is she still in attendance? Because she could say,
She is
Sue's-
muted. Oh.
I'm still here.
Okay,
okay, thanks. Great,
Now, Michael, if you hosted, it would save the association a little money too, so.
Yep.
I don't know how they're paid. I don't get involved in all that. But it would save them to have to sit here on a Monday night. Morgan could do something else. I'm sure she's got something she could do.
you don't think we're totally fascinating? Not to mention photogenic. Sorry.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Motion
Motion to
to
Move
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second, third. all
Fourth.
All right. Okay, thank you guys for all your research and work and everything. And I'll see you on the 24th, if not
Right.
before somewhere.
Excellent, and thank you,
Okay.
Michael.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.